Okay, so I am continuing my Ghost in the Shell journey, and I have just watched the standalone complex movie Solid State Society, which takes place after the series. And I do believe, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the end of the standalone complex continuity. It's the first two seasons of the show, well, the only two seasons of the show, and then the movie to kind of conclude it. Even though this movie didn't really act as a conclusion, and kind of felt like a very long episode, but a very good long episode. I enjoyed this movie quite a bit. I loved the animation style. It's very consistent to the standalone complex show. The music is back on point, very reminiscent of the first two movies that are in their own continuity. But what I thought was really interesting about this movie is that they added a lot from those first two Ghost in the Shell films in a way that I felt like they were trying to make a lot of those events canon within this continuity, if that makes sense. So standalone complex is its own thing, had its own two seasons that were great, but they didn't really cover or do anything that were in the original Ghost in the Shell movies. Now that standalone complex has a movie, I felt like they took a lot of ideas from those first two films and kind of incorporated them into this universe, which in a way I really like, because it's sort of like seeing the events of those original two movies, but in a different context. So what I mean by that is, number one, the movie starts out with the Major not being part of Section 9 anymore, and it focuses a lot more on Bato and Togusa, which is exactly what Ghost in the Shell 2 Innocence did. And Bato is my favorite character, so I don't have a problem seeing more of him. Although the Major does have a much bigger role to play in this movie than she does in Ghost in the Shell 2 Innocence, but the kind of general premise of beginning the movie is the same. It's like the Major is no longer there, and we're focusing a lot on the other characters and the supporting cast within Section 9. The other thing is the villain of this movie is the puppeteer, as opposed to the puppet master, which was the villain of the original Ghost in the Shell movie. And if I understand the ending right, I probably don't, but it looks as though it has the same kind of origin, where it is this manifested new consciousness that kind of came out of, I guess the net, or is what they call it in the movie, sort of an AI being that has come from different pieces of different consciousness, kind of involving the Major a lot more in this version, but they still do that link at the end of the movie, which is similar to the link that they did at the end of the original Ghost in the Shell movie. So it really does seem like this is the standalone complex way of saying, hey, we're going to give you the events of the movies, just our version of it. And I really don't have a problem with that. And a lot of people say that the standalone complex Ghost in the Shell universe is the best and is their favorite. And I can definitely understand why, now having seen all of it. I don't know if there is pardon me, I have this written down. There's a Ghost in the Shell standalone complex 2045, which is like the newest version of Ghost in the Shell that came out. I don't know if that is connected to this or if that's, again, in its own universe. But just for argument's sake, if this is all of Ghost in the Shell standalone complex, yeah, it is legitimately the best. But it has the most time to play with the characters and develop them because it has an entire series rather than just being a movie. I still think the original Ghost in the Shell movie, 1995, is just a masterpiece of science fiction cinema. And as a movie, I love it. But if you're going to ask me now what I think is the best overall Ghost in the Shell experience, I'd still say watch that movie. But yeah, standalone complex, far and away. Now, there were a lot of individual moments of this movie that I thought were really great. Like I said, it really plays to me like an extended episode, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. The overall story involves a lot of different things happening at the same time. People that are, committing suicide, as well as children being abducted, which is pretty dark and pretty heavy-handed, like I would say in this movie. Like, it doesn't shy away from any of, the like trafficking that could be happening in real life, or real life ideas just in a fantasy science fiction setting, the same way that Ghost in the Shell always has played with like the aftermath of war and refugees and people dealing with this new technology and everything. So nothing is really far and away different than themes that Ghost in the Shell has tackled in the past, but having a lot of it right there within like an hour and a half, hour 40-minute movie, there's a lot of heavy stuff that happens. And anytime you're dealing with like children being messed with or being abducted, you know, it gets very uncomfortable at times, but I think that it works very well for the movie. There's this whole kind of plot of like these children are being taken and given to elderly people to collect their inheritance, and like this whole kind of conspiracy about these abductions that are happening. But then also, you know, it kind of delves back into ideas of the first Ghost in the Shell movie once again, with your mind being able to be hacked and giving you alternate memories, making you kind of forget things in your life. And to me, I think the scene that worked the best, that was one of the best scenes, I think, in any Ghost in the Shell media that I've seen so far, is when Togusa has his daughter. Now, I was very emotionally attached to Togusa because of the original Ghost in the Shell 2 Innocence movie. It deals a lot more with him and his family. And I love the relationship that he has with his daughter. I think it's endearing. And there's a moment where he's being kind of like mind hacked, and he's going to go through the same process where, you know, he's going to have to let his daughter go, and then he's going to ultimately take his own life. And it's so, like, the tension in this scene is so real. It's so visceral. They're walking down this long corridor, and he knows what he's going to do, and he doesn't really have control over it. The only thing he can do is let her run away. You know, Bato's trying to get there in time, and the whole scene just works phenomenally. I thought it was great. Thankfully, and I really, you know, honestly, for a moment, the movie got me. I honestly, for a moment, thought that Togusa was really going to die. Like, the way that the scene plays, his daughter running away and Bato being there, and just, you know, me knowing that this is the last standalone complex thing, like there's no more episodes of the show, this is the only movie they made, I was like, I thought they were really going to go there. You know what I mean? But I liked the way that it was resolved, with the Major showing up and her kind of rejoining Section 9 for the finale of the movie. I didn't think it was like a, what's the word I'm looking for? I didn't think it was like a cop-out. Like, I thought that the scene worked really well, but I felt like it could have gone either way. Like, they could have killed Togusa, and I think the scene would have worked, but the way that they played it with the Major stepping in, I also think works, and I don't think it undercuts anything that happened before. So this is a movie, and you expect the animation budget to be a bit higher. Mostly, I felt like it was very in line with the show. I didn't see anything that was so stand out to me that if you would have told me this was an episode and I was watching scenes, it would have felt completely the same as watching the show. There was nothing really in the movie that I felt was, you know, like visually spectacular, I guess. I would say the visuals of the original 2 Ghost in the Shell movies are better, but that's not to say the animation was bad. I'm not criticizing the animation for being bad or anything like that. I think it looks great. I think it looks just like the standalone complex show, but there was nothing in it that kind of, I felt, went above and beyond what the show was capable of. They did add in, you know, that early mid 2000s CG stuff, you know, with some of the vehicle scenes and some of the cityscapes and stuff, which that I kind of give a pass, because that was sort of like of the times, you know, it's not something they would probably do a lot of today. So, you know, that didn't really bother me or anything, but I was kind of expecting the animation to be a little bit different, maybe kind of go that extra mile, and mostly it was just good. I also like taking the Major out of Section 9 and having her do her own mission that is going on alongside them. There's a little bit of a trust issue between her and Bato, but there's also that mutual respect that stays there. So I thought that that dynamic worked very well. And to me, I just like the idea of not really knowing what the Major is up to. She is one of those characters that I really like, you know, the complexity of what kind of goes on within her head. Like, she's a very interesting character in the sense that she's always doing things her own way. She's very forward thinking. She's very thought out with everything that she does. And she is kind of like the best agent that you would want to work for Section 9. But I also think her kind of working solo works really, really well too. And I like that it sort of coincides with what Section 9 is doing. But every time that she shows up in the movie is a great scene, whether it's an action scene, whether it's the ending, whether it's her saving Togusa. You wait for the moment for the Major to show up, and every time that she does, it just enhances what the next stage of the movie is going to be. Now, overall, it's hard to compare a movie to an entire TV series. I would say, obviously, Standalone Complex, the series, is better. I would put season 1 first, then season 2, and then the movie, but that's not any slight against the movie. And then ranking it against the first two Ghost in the Shell movies is very difficult because, like I said, I think the original is just a masterpiece, especially for the time period it came out. And the second one, I need to rewatch at some point in life because I felt like a lot of it went over my head, but I did really like it. I like the vibe to it, the tone, like the atmosphere of it. But I like this a lot too. So I would say this is a solid continuation of Standalone Complex. Not really a finale. I was also kind of expecting that it to kind of be like to give some kind of conclusion to that universe, but really it just felt like things are going to go on. There's a lot of mysteries unsolved, and like we don't really know what's going to happen next, which can also work as its own ending, just not what I originally intended or originally thought the movie was going to be. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think of Standalone Complex, Solid State Society down below. Do you love the movie? Do you hate the movie? How would you compare it to the TV show or the first two films? And let me know what you think. So thanks for watching, guys. I think next up for Ghost in the Shell is the Arise series, which is collected into 4 movies. So I think that's the version I'm going to watch. So that'll be next up on my chopping block. But if you've enjoyed my Ghost in the Shell journey, let me know down below. Thanks as always for watching, guys. If you want to support the channel on a deeper level, I do have Patreon, channel memberships, and all the social media links where you can follow me down below. As always, hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you next time.